Are you feeling okay?
Must
running. It seems kind of warm in here. I think I might be running a fever.
Yes, it's Plague Week.
Plague Week for the horror guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're the Sickly Horror Guys.
We're
talking
not,
to you about Plague Week this
we're
week.
Not really sickly. We're healthy as horses, but it's...
Well, after watching these movies, I don't know.
Yeah, if you can catch it from the screen, we would have. Yeah.
What do we got?
A set of 4. A brand new one, a couple brand new ones. Nocebo and Pontypool. And then some older ones, Contagion. And a really older one, the Andromeda Strain.
Actually, Pontypool was like 2009, I think.
Oh,
so
I was thinking
it's not
that was
that
a new
new
one, too. Okay.
Nocebo is new.
Oh, yes. Oh, Pontypool was 2009. Why was I thinking that was brand new?
Because we hadn't seen it before.
No, it was new to us. Yeah.
Everything is new to us once.
Contagion was 2011, and Andromeda Strain was all the way back in 1971.
Yeah, that's been remade a couple of times.
And but this is the classic.
The original, yes. Yeah. And those are the ones we're going to talk about here today. If you are on our email list over at horrorbulletin.com, you'll also hear about some future plagues. Jetee from 1962, a French movie.
Oui.
That is very, very short. It's kind of weird. It's not a movie. It's more like a slideshow almost.
A slideshow with voiceovers.
Yeah.
But it tells a story.
Yeah.
And the story that it tells is the one that the movie 12 Monkeys is based on.
Yeah, basically they took the same story and made
Expanded
a real movie out of it. 12 Monkeys from 1995.
Yeah, that one with Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. And, yeah, it was interesting watching them both one after the other. Because
you could see the similarities.
The basic story is so similar. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to look at both of those, Jetee and 12 Monkeys, in the newsletter. So sign up for that if you're not already there. If you are there, check your email Saturday morning. And it'll be there.
You know, and it's strange. 12 Monkeys, this was the third time I'd seen it. First time, I really didn't like it very much. And I have liked it and appreciated it more every time I've seen it.
First time I saw it, I was blown away.
I was just meh.
And this time, I was a little more meh on it.
Oh, okay.
I was much less impressed this time than previous viewings.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it more every time. So I can't wait till my 4th viewing. I'll just be in rapture.
I can. Well, speaking of 4 years ago, we did episode number 6.
I bet we talked about some movies, didn't we?
We did. We looked at Dr. Fives Rises Again.
Oh, I love those movies.
We looked at the original Abominable Dr. Fives the previous week, and this is the sequel.
Dr. Fives Rises Again.
Also very good, but not as good as the first one.
And a little sillier. Because he travels so heavy.
He was much, much more over the top and comical in this one.
He was over the top, yeah.
And he was much more evil in this one. In the first one, it was revenge for killing his wife.
No,
this one, he's just killing people because he wants to.
Yeah. Well, he had an ulterior motive. He wanted the elixir, the river of life.
A lot of those people he killed, though, had nothing to do with that.
I mean, dead wife. Yeah. Just for kicks.
And we also watched Day of the Dead Bloodlines. Well, it was brand new in 2018. And what do you remember about that one?
Nothing.
It was a zombie movie.
Yeah. I had to look up what stuff about it.
I think it had something to do with a girl who was going to be the zombie next generation or something like that.
It was kind of forgettable.
Oh, boy, was it.
Yeah.
4 years and we both had to look up what it was about.
Yeah.
Not a winner.
It was one of those that, you don't hate it. It, didn't outright suck, but just unmemorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of, not one that stuck with us.
Something that will stick with you, though, is if you pick up one of our copies of the Horror Bulletin magazine. Go over to horrorguysshop.com. The 16th issue is currently out. And if you're not listening to this right away, 17th will probably be out within the next week. So, yeah, it's got all the reviews from the previous month. And like I said, this is 16 or 17 issues now. All of them are still there. So you can get print versions of everything we've talked about for the past year and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of movies.
It is a lot of movies. We watch a lot of movies.
We watch too doggone many movies sometimes. It's hard to keep up.
It is.
Well, one of them, the first movie to make us sick this week, is a new one called Nocebo from 2022, directed by Lorcan Finnegan, written by Garrett Shanley, stars Ava Green, Mark Strong, and Chai Fonancier, hour and 26 minutes, Trailer in the show notes if you haven't heard about this one.
Spoiler free, what happens?
Spoiler free. It's got some excellent acting that takes us through this tale of witchery and creepy insects. Overall, it's well done and entertaining.
And we can't talk about it very much, even in the spoiler free, because it's hard to. This one's, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. You can talk about the beginning parts. I mean,
yeah, which we're gonna.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Christine and Felix argue about who must pick up their child at school. She takes their daughter Bob's, but he cannot pick her up later. And they're having a children's fashion show. She
is a fashion designer for children.
Fashion designer for children's shows, yeah. So that's so she's got that going on all throughout this in the background. She gets a call in the middle of the show, something about bodies. Well, she sees a large, blind, disease-ridden dog walking toward her in the dressing room. It shakes dirt and ticks all over her. She stands up, and we see that she does indeed have a tick on her neck. And then credits roll.
What could go wrong?
Lots of things, it turns out.
What was that mangy old dog doing in a fashion show?
We don't know. Hallucination.
Seems out of place.
Yeah. Something? Yeah. Ghost dog. We don't know. 8 months later, we see that Christine is on a CPAP machine, and she looks sick. There's a wound on the back of her neck. She visits a client, asks how she's been doing after everything. I'm fine now, just eager to get back in the saddle. Except Christine's hands start shaking uncontrollably, so she calls Felix to pick up Bob's. The client likes her designs, but needs some modifications in a hurry.
They never actually say it's Lyme disease, but that's the big thing that you get from ticks, and it's pretty clear that that's what she had.
Mm-hmm. Which can really mess you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the doorbell rings, and it's Dana. I'm here to help you, she says. Except Christine doesn't remember, but she lets her in.
She has memory problems, so maybe she did. Maybe she hired this woman. Maybe she didn't.
And she's real persuasive and friendly and just bustles in like she knows what she's doing and belongs there. She'll be living there, she says, but Christine doesn't remember any of that. Diana catches a tick in a matchbox.
The house is still full of ticks?
Yeah,
Ew.
there seems to be, or she brought them with her or something.
Ew.
Yeah, ew. Felix and Bob's arrive, and they didn't know about Diana either. Felix asks where in the Philippines she came from, but she doesn't know the place very well.
Well, he doesn't know the place.
She
describes it.
He doesn't know the place, yeah. And Felix and Christine argue about the arrangement, but since Christine is busy with work, they decide to let things go for a week, see how it goes with the new caretaker. Christine falls over and has a seizure, but Diana makes it go away by ticking her.
Tickling.
Tickling.
Tickle, tickle, tickle.
Well,
what a weird treatment.
Ticking her, yeah. Diana leaves ashes from the fireplace in a pile outside her bedroom door before going to bed. We flash to her in the Philippines dancing and having a good time, and in the morning there are child-sized footprints in the ashes.
Maybe that's a good place to stop.
Yeah, I don't think we want to go further.
So we got this mystery nurse that may or may not really belong there. We got this mystery disease that came from a strange mystery dog. And we got something about bodies.
And footprints.
And footprints, yes.
In the ashes.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
All right, well, Kevin and I had a theory about why this was happening about a half hour into the movie. And then we saw a certain thing, and we guessed it right off the bat.
We did, about half an hour in.
Yeah, if you're paying attention, it's kind of predictable there.
Yeah.
But the acting is excellent all around.
It's still really well done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ava Green never looked so sickly. She's usually like fashion plate in most of her shows, and she just looks like, death warmed over here. The little girl Bob's was particularly good. Child actors are usually awful.
We always appreciate when there's a good child actor.
Well, the plot, we guessed what was going on far too early, but it was still well executed.
And creepy.
The sets were good. The characters all acted more or less reasonably, and the Filipino magic was interesting and unique.
A thumbs up.
We don't get a lot of Filipino magic.
No.
Like Native American or, Irish or European kind of thing.
Or the Haitian voodoo kind of thing.
Or that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's one that we had both heard of for a long time, and for some reason it slipped under our radar. We didn't see it. Pontypool from 2009, directed by Bruce McDonald, written by Tony Burgess, stars Stephen McHattie, Lisa Howell, and Georgina Riley, hour and 33 minutes. Spoiler free, what happens?
It's a story that builds nicely and has a very simple setting, mostly taking place within a few rooms of a building. And it's well done, good script, skillful acting. Stephen McHattie is just perfect in the lead role.
Yeah, I'd seen him in lots of things, but I never actually knew his name until this one. He really kind of stands out here.
He's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the lead here, and yeah, he nails it.
Well, in the small town of Pontypool, Grant Mezzi encounters a strange woman on the road, but she wanders off into the snowstorm.
And this is Canada, eh?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just thought I'd throw that in there.
Is that actually relevant to anything? Because I wasn't sure. I thought it might have been in
a little bit. There's
Europe somewhere.
There's some Canadian things.
Okay. Well, Grant arrives at the radio station. He's a DJ. Laurel Ann, his technician, welcomes him to work. His producer, Sidney Breyer, is there as well. The whole studio is made in the basement of a church. Well, there's a big snowstorm going on, so they switch to talking to a helicopter pilot about the weather. Grant and Sidney argue about him talking about pot growers instead. He just wants to make the listeners angry to build his audience. He's a shock jock.
Or he's trying to be. He's a wannabe.
Yeah. Laurel Ann hears over the police radio that there's a developing hostage situation. Grant makes up a bunch of details about the sketchy story, which really annoys Sidney. I mean, she hears on the radio that, there's a hostage station down at the grocery store or something like that. And then he comes up with all these minute details, just pulling them out of his butt.
Yeah, just rattling it off.
Sidney admits that Ken, the helicopter reporter, is really just a guy in his car up on a hill playing sound effects.
Which is why I laughed when you first mentioned him.
On WKRP, Les Nessman and his eyewitness weather.
Yeah, we never actually see him.
Yeah.
Ken, but we hear him. He's a radio voice throughout it.
Well, the police ask them to drop the story. The copter guy calls in with more trouble. Dr. John Mendez's office is surrounded by an unruly mob. Hundreds of people are clamoring outside. People are trampling one another, and the copter guy says it looks like people are dying there. The military arrives in trucks and actual helicopters. Ken, the copter guy, goes silent. They arrive in actual helicopters, not like him and his
right.
Volvo or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Then Grant must interview a bunch of awful singers dressed in brownface, and they sing. That looked really painful.
Yeah, it did.
Meanwhile, Sidney and Laurel Ann try to learn more about what's happening outside. One of the singers starts repeating a sound over and over, and then they all leave. Ken doesn't call back, but they do find an eyewitness. When they go to the witness, there's nothing on the line but screaming. They finally get through to a police officer who fills them in on a herd of people near the edge of the forest. Some people were said to be imitating windshield wipers, and a car has been buried under a mound of people. It's all very weird. How do you imitate a windshield wiper?
Left, right. Use your arms, swinging back and forth.
Then they get a call from a reporter with the BBC. He's asking about the Canadian police putting up roadblocks in and out of town. Grant doesn't know anything about that and tries to deny that the problems going on are terrorist or political. But the BBC guy says it sure looks like an insurgency.
The BBC guy wants it to be an insurgency.
Yeah, that would be big news.
Yeah.
Ken finally calls in again. He's in trouble. The rioting crowd came after him, and he's barricaded himself in a silo. Again, just like that WKRP Christmas episode, Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah.
The crowd turns against him. He's hysterical at the terrible things he's seen tonight. Ken talks about naked cannibals that act like dogs. He reports that people are eating each other like piranhas. Sidney wants Grant to stop the interview. She doesn't want to hear Ken get killed on the air, and then they lose Ken. They're warned to avoid the English language. What? Well, Sidney gets a call that the whole town is now under quarantine. Ken comes back on and plays audio of a mortally wounded teenager calling for mommy and making sounds like a child. Okay, this is just getting worse and worse, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Grant and Sidney argue about whether the whole thing is a hoax or not, because up to this point, they've just been sitting in their basement studio and we've seen nothing.
Right. Everything is normal in their little rooms. Yeah.
They're both having trouble believing any of this. He starts getting upset and demands to go outside and look around. He's only out for a few seconds before people attack the very solid-looking doors.
Yeah, it's a good thing the place is built like a fortress.
Yeah. Grant decides to read the obituaries to fill in the dead air, and it sounds like about half of them were murdered. It's like nobody really noticed this pattern until today. There's a
And
lot of murders in that town.
and this was a moment of dark humor, really.
Yeah, because
reading
he's
those
just reading
obituaries.
those, yes.
And it shows quick reenactments of each one as he's reading them, and they're offbeat and weird deaths,
yeah, they
weird
are.
murders, and yeah.
Laurel Ann starts repeating the word missing uncontrollably. When the teapot starts whistling, she starts making the same monotone sound. All of a sudden, Dr. Mendez crawls in through a window and tells Sidney to stay away from Laurel Ann. Mendez and Sidney hide in the sound booth with Grant. Laurel Ann tries to get in, but Mendez says no, it's dangerous. Well, Ken comes in and he keeps using the word symbol, simple, sample.
He calls in. He doesn't come in.
Yeah,
He's still
calls
just
in,
a voice.
In inappropriate places. He seems to be losing his sanity as they listen to him on the phone. Mendez says, whatever it is has gone viral, but it's carried in words and sounds. Some words are infected, and it spreads out when the contaminated word is spoken. It's more about understanding a word than just hearing it. Huh.
Crazy.
Grant thinks this is all just a little crazy.
A lot crazy.
Should we be talking about this? Should we be talking at all? Could they actually destroy the world over this broadcast? Through all of this, Laurel Ann is beating her head into the unbreakable glass of the studio. Her head is a battering ram.
Yeah, that gets pretty bloody.
Laurel Ann suddenly explodes in blood and puke as others break in from outside. They turn off the lights and hide under the desk as zombified people wander in and press their faces into the glass. They try to send a message. Sidney Breyer is alive. But the zombies outside latch onto the message and start to repeat it.
Just weird.
It's like a game of Telegram? You say them? Yeah, but they
Yeah.
all get it right.
Yeah.
Mendez starts babbling in German that only the English language is infected. Since they're in Canada, Grant and Sidney switch to talking in French. The loudspeaker starts playing "Oh Canada," which gets the crazies all riled up. What is it, a hockey game? The zombies and "Oh Canada," it's the same thing, isn't it? Dr. Mendez runs outside as a distraction to save the other two. Sidney and Grant hide in the storeroom, but she gets drunk and won't stop talking. Grant wants to figure out a way to stop understanding words. As he works through this, Sidney starts repeating the word kill, kill, kill. He repeats the word in strange ways to confuse her, and it actually works. He confuses the word right out of her.
Mm-hmm.
Grant decides that he's found the cure and wants to save the world with one final broadcast. They get back on the air and tell people that kill is kiss, sample is staple, everything is something else, happy is handy. Meanwhile, there are bombs falling outside with explosions everywhere. The two of them spit out nonsense word back and forth until the bombs stop. Then they hear a countdown, and everything goes black.
So much for the cure.
Well, it's very tense, and we see very little outside the studio. The acting here is everything. There's only one set and 4 main characters. It's a weird and unique situation, and it's fun to learn what's going on with Grant and the gang as the story unfolds. It's never really explained why this is happening or what started it all. It's very original and very good.
Yeah, it is. And it's not brand new. It's 2009. I had that wrong.
Short film. The
The
Plague.
Plague.
2000. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
2019 short film The Plague, written and directed by Guillermo Carbonell, stars Gabriela Freire, Rafael Soliwota, and Walter Ray. 8 minutes, 25 seconds. What happens?
2 men park at the end of a pier and wait for another car. One of the men wipes blood from his jacket.
Is it his? Maybe.
Well,
We don't know.
elsewhere, Rosa wakes up. Someone's in her house. But she finds her father there, in the bathroom. He's gotten away from the nursing home again. As she calls the nursing home, there's another knock at the door, and this one isn't as benign.
Who could it be now?
Well, it gets weird very fast. And you'd think they could have done the job a bit more neatly, but they're not neat about it. It looks good. It's nicely shot and well lit. Music works really well. We don't get an explanation of what happened, but it's cool anyway. What kind of plague is it?
It is a plague. It
It
says
is
so
a
right there in the
plague.
title.
It's right there in the title. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, it was good.
I'm not completely
fits-
understanding of it.
And fits in with the weekly theme.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Continuing the Plague Week, we have 2011's film Contagion, directed by Steven Soderbergh, written by Scott Z. Burns, stars Matt Damon, Kate Winslet, Jude Law, and Gwyneth Paltrow. How's that cast for a horror movie?
That's a mighty powerhouse cast.
I'm not sure if this was considered a horror movie when it came out. I think it was more a thriller drama kind of thing.
And I think it probably still would be considered heavily drama. But yeah, there's definitely some horror elements.
Well, considering how things end, and yeah, okay. Hour and 46 minutes, trailer in the show notes if you have not seen this one.
And Samuel L. Jackson was great in this, too.
That was Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh, it was?
That joke never gets old, does it?
That joke doesn't get old. No. And in case you're wondering where that joke comes from, in an interview once, there was somebody who was talking to Samuel L. Jackson and mentioned how much he liked him in some movie. So was it The Matrix or something? That was, and he's like, "Did you just mistake me for Lawrence Fishburne?" And there the joke was born, and the interviewer was just humiliated, but it was done. So, yeah.
Well, imagine if COVID had been much more serious disease. That's how the events of this movie unfold, with a very realistic outbreak, spread, and reactions. It's all made with a powerhouse cast and disturbingly entertaining. And remember, this is from 2011, almost a decade before COVID actually happened.
It was amazingly prophetic.
Yeah, when it came out, it was a movie. It was science fiction. This is not going to... And almost everything in the film is exactly what happened in COVID.
This is the first time I had seen it.
COVID was not quite as deadly as this disease, but everything in this happened during COVID, too.
Imagine if COVID was much worse, much more deadly. It was this movie. Yeah.
What happens?
Well, Beth Emhoff has a cough. She gets a phone call at the airport. A sick-looking kid in Hong Kong walks through a crowded city. And we see various people around the globe getting sick, including one fatality. Well, he wandered out in front of a car because he was
not paying attention because he was sick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the first fatality is not from the disease. Yeah. The sick people are on buses, elevators, crowds, and yeah, you know how that goes. Well, the next day at the CDC in Atlanta, Dr. Alice Shiver goes to work and talks to an employee about his kid with ADHD. Alan Crumwide is a journalist who wants to talk about these people getting sick. Did I say Alex? Alan.
Alan.
Yeah. Well, Beth's son gets sick at school. He caught it from his mother. His father, Mitch, has to go to school to pick him up. Well, by the fourth day, Beth collapses and goes into convulsions soon after she dies.
So if you don't like Gwyneth Paltrow, don't worry. She doesn't last 5 minutes.
She's kind of, not the first necessarily, but, well, or is she? The doctor thinks it's either encephalitis or meningitis, but he's not sure. And by the time Mitch gets home, his son has died as well.
Oops.
Yeah. Well, the CDC starts gathering blood samples from Hong Kong, London, Tokyo, and other places. They know something's up. Dr. Aaron Mears arrives to help with the research. During Beth's autopsy, they open up her skull and look at her brain. They find something shocking inside.
Goop.
It's full of goop. They actually use that word. Whether that was deliberate or not. They put Mitch into isolation, but he's not showing any symptoms. That's her husband. And the daughter doesn't seem to be showing symptoms either. They had 2 kids. Well, the government people argue about what to tell the public, how much, and so forth. And, well, this is the biggest shopping weekend of the year, after all. Homeland Security comes in to see Dr. Cheever. They wonder if someone has weaponized the bird flu. They're just throwing out all kinds of ideas here. They don't know. And they don't know.
Well, bird flu was a thing in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Well, the guy who picked up Beth at the airport gets sick and infects a whole busload of people. The CDC learns that the disease originated in pigs and bats. It's got DNA from both. Cue down the tracking down patient zero montage, which turns out to be Gwyneth Paltrow.
Which we don't really know that until the very end.
But they gradually piece it together throughout the movie.
It's not critical to the story, so it's not really a spoiler.
But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
their detective work is kind of interesting throughout. And we see how it kind of worked from reverse, too.
Yeah.
It's neat how it was filmed. Dr. Sussman is ordered to shut down his research and let the government deal with it, but he doesn't listen and learns how to grow the virus.
Which is actually a good thing.
It is, yeah. Dr. Mears decides that Mitch is probably immune to the virus and lets him go. The virus continues to spread, and by this time, everyone knows it. Dr. Mears gets sick and calls Shiver. Dr. Orantes with the WHO, the World Health Organization, not the band, is kidnapped in Hong Kong, taken to a small village as a hostage to get the vaccine that is rumored on the internet.
Which they don't really even have yet. They're developing one, but they don't have it yet.
But it's rumors on the internet that, it's been developed and they're holding it back. And the village, wants first dibs on it, or we're not going to release this scientist. Well, Shiver learns that mass transport of all kinds is shutting down. Most people start working from home.
Work from home?
Work from home, yeah, where they can. For Cynthia, a medication is said to be a cure. And that spreads around the internet, but it doesn't really do anything for the disease.
Ivermectin.
Yeah.
Ivermectin.
Yeah, it's like the ivermectin, only worse. This does even less than ivermectin. I mean, at least ivermectin is a legit medicine for other things. This was just some snake oil thing that doesn't really do anything at all for anything. And, of course, there's people that make money off it. Well, Shiver tells his fiancée to leave Chicago. And it's a secret, so she tells a friend. So don't tell anybody else, but, she's going to tell the friend who probably told somebody else too. And, yeah. And, well, before long, there's a run on food at the grocery stores and rioting starts, and the borders are sealed. This keeps getting worse and worse. Alan Crumwald starts putting out flyers claiming that the CDC lies and putting for Cynthia promotions and conspiracy stuff on his video blog.
Fake news.
Yes, and he's making millions of dollars off for Cynthia while he's doing this, and millions of dollars off his blog and all this. There are mass graves, and the people burying bodies run out of body bags. Alan Crumwald debates Shiver on the TV news, and the fact that Shiver told someone to leave Chicago comes back to bite him. Because he wasn't supposed to fill the...
Scandal.
Yeah, wasn't supposed to spill the beans like that or give special privileges or anything. So he's kind of out. Well, then the virus mutates. The vaccine development process isn't working. The fatality rate is between 25 and 30%. People can't get food. There's more fighting and rioting. Mitch starts breaking into dead neighbors' abandoned houses looking for food. One doctor who has been working on a vaccine, she infects herself. I mean, she, rather than wait for that long vaccine clearing process, she just infects herself and then vaccinates herself. And it seems to work. And she's got it. But it'll take time to produce enough to stop the virus, and then they have to decide who will get the virus first when they start making it.
Vaccine. Who will get the vaccine
the
first?
vaccine, yes. My
They
bad.
already got the virus.
Yeah. Who will get the vaccine first? Because initially there's not going to be enough for everybody. Well, Alan still insists that For Cynthia works because he makes money from it, and now he's trash-talking the vaccine. He's arrested for a whole bunch of things, but is soon released. They end up doing a lottery based on people's birthdays, deciding on who gets the vaccine the soonest. Just kind of random. The men in Hong Kong release Dr. Orantes when they get 100 doses of the vaccine. But they gave the kidnappers placebos instead of the real thing. Dr. Shiver gives his fiancée the vaccine, but gives his own dose to one of the employees' kids. And things gradually start going back to normal. And then they show the beginning, the origin of it. A fruit fly bat flies into a
fruit
pen.
bat flies into a
fruit
pig pen.
bat flies into a pig pen, and the pig pen winds up. The pig winds up in a restaurant where Beth was eating, and that's how it all started. She was patient zero all along. The pig was being prepared in the kitchen. The chef didn't wash his hands, and he went out and shook her hand. And there it started.
Plague.
Yeah.
Well, this came out in 2011 and was a big hit at the time. If it came out today, it'd be slammed for being political. We've heard of this stuff repeatedly over the past 3 years with COVID, and most of the way the film progresses is exactly like what actually happened with COVID, although it was a little less fatal in real life. And the real world wasn't the level of disaster that this movie had.
It was a lot less fatal than this movie was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for a speculative film, it was awfully realistic in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
This was made 12 years ago, but the vast majority kind of feels like history today.
Yeah, all the bad and good of COVID, the bad actors and good actors, and yeah, the
The whole process played out about right.
misinformation and
yes.
misunderstanding, and yeah, it was amazing how close it was.
Going back even further, 1971, the original film of the Andromeda Strain was directed by Robert Wise, written by Michael Crichton and Nelson Gidding, stars James Olsen, Arthur Hill, and David Wayne. 2 hours and 11 minutes, makes this the longest one of the week. Spoiler-free.
This was heavily science fiction, but there are some horror elements for sure. It's steady and tense and a little low on action, but it never gets boring. And it's held up over the years. It's worth the watch.
As a science fiction movie, it's held up over the years.
Yeah. As a disease thing, not so much.
Yeah, this is not probably the way it would really work.
Yeah, the disease science, I don't think it would. But the science, well, it's 70s science fiction.
This is really much more about the secret lair than it is about the disease.
Super high tech. Yeah, they've got the super high tech facility and the super high tech, ultra modern computers, which are still in some ways more advanced than what we have, but in some ways, horribly clunky compared to what we have. So it's interesting how the 70s thought the future was going to be.
It's a 1970s sci-fi movie about a disease from space.
Yeah.
Well, we are told that what we're about to see is top secret and based on an actual 4-day-long event as credits roll. It's all very top security.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a man looks at the little desert town of Piedmont in his telescope using night vision. He gets back into his van, and we see that it's a satellite recovery vehicle here to pick up what's left after a satellite crashed down. Well, they notice the town is being circled by buzzards, and they call into Vandenberg Air Force Base and report that there's no sign of life in town. There are lots of bodies on the ground, though, and they're ordered to proceed to the satellite. There are screams, and then the radio goes dead.
Uh-oh.
Gotcha. Major Manchak orders an air flyover, and he confirms that the whole town is dead. Manchak calls his supervisors and declares it a Project Wildfire situation. Various scientists and experts are called in. Dr. Jeremy Stone reads the classified report on the way to the base. Dr. Charles Dutton is picked up in the middle of the night. General Sparks is put in charge, and Dr. Ruth Levitt doesn't want to cooperate with the soldiers, but is convinced Dr. Mark Hall is interrupted in the middle of surgery. Though they're not taking no for an answer.
No, they aren't.
You, expert, come with us.
Yeah, and he's like, but I'm in the middle of an operation. And they're like, no, this other surgeon will take over for you. No problem.
Well, we're told that Stone predicted that something like this might happen several years ago. The next morning, Mark and Stone are in a helicopter checking out the town. The man on the helicopter briefs him that they think it's some kind of space plague. The buzzards are eating the dead people, and there's concern that they'll fly off and spread the contamination, so they drop gas canisters to kill all the birds. Seems like that would be very
hard to control.
Yeah,
hard to kill them all. Hard to stop it.
Exactly. Yeah, some of them are bound to get away.
Yes, and insects, and it'd be hard to contain.
Well, Mark and Stone land on the ground, and it's obvious that whatever killed most of these people was nearly instantaneous. A few seem to have gone crazy and lived long enough to kill themselves. None of the bodies appear to have bled at all. All their blood has instantly clotted and turned to powder. Well, they find the satellite opened in the doctor's office. They do find one baby alive, as well as an old man who isn't doing so well. So yeah, whatever it was in that satellite.
Mm-hmm. But there's 2 survivors. How come?
The plan is to nuke the town to sterilize the site, but various approvals will take hours. No, the president refuses to give the order. Charles and Ruth arrive at Wildfire, the secret base in the desert set up because of Stone's warnings a few years ago. It's disguised as an agricultural research center with a secret elevator to the lab beneath. And we get to see all the details of this base, and it's pretty cool.
It is neat.
Dr. Evil would love it.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. No would love it. All the evil doctors would love it.
And how they have it set up, because it's just a harmless, agricultural station, and they go in and they have to give passphrases to get in, but they go into a closet that looks like a a janitor's closet and close the door.
It's an elevator.
That's the elevator. Yeah.
And it's way down there.
Yeah.
Well, Stone shows Mark how to use the special keys that activate the nuclear self-destruct device. Well, there's some theory that an unmarried male is the best choice for countermanding the destruct order, and he's it. Never did quite understand that.
Oh, they had a...
Wouldn't the married guy with a family be the more likely one to counteract the order?
Well, I think that was where part of where they were coming from, because the married guy with a kid is going to say, "Oh, I'm going to save my family." Where if it's an unmarried, unattached guy,
he would be less likely to counteract.
He can be more impartial. Yeah.
All right.
Whether if it really needs it or not. I think more the impartiality, I think, was what they were going for.
A bomb will go off automatically after a short countdown if a leak to the outside is a real concern, and only he can stop it if he decides to with his key. They all go through various fairly invasive decontamination procedures, and then they all go to sleep. The next morning they have a strange breakfast because real food can transmit diseases. Charles is concerned that the space bacteria may be intelligent, but the others don't really care. Well, they all go into a room where Stone manipulates the satellite using robotic arms, and they very quickly learn that the satellite is still contagious, and it kills a rat and a monkey. Well, the baby and the old man are plugged into a medical computer that seems to know everything. Some of that sci-fi again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They do tests that show that the disease transmits through the air, and in the satellite, they find a single tiny grain of a meteor with green stuff on it. That may be what caused all this. Then they find out that the green stuff is growing.
Creepy.
A jet flying over Piedmont crashes. The plague has gotten to the pilot within 2 minutes, and we see his oxygen mask has disintegrated into dust. The pilot is nothing left but a skeleton. It's mutated into a form that consumes plastic and flesh. The secret wildfire lab loses communications with the outside world due to a simple malfunction.
And this whole consuming plastic is a bit of a concern because all the gaskets and seals and everything that's keeping these labs airtight are, lots of plastic and rubber and stuff.
Yeah.
This is not good.
Ruth discovers that the particle can survive on nearly anything. It can live in deep space and can eat anything.
Even energy.
An atomic blast could feed it to the point of destroying the world. It can feed on energy.
Mm-hmm.
They make sure they don't nuke the town, but it'll take time to disable the nuclear self-destruct bomb in the lab. Ruth and Charles find out that the base was designed to develop biological weapons and suspect that the satellite was sent up to find samples on purpose. My.
But the head guy is like, "Oh, yeah, but let's not talk about that now. Let's solve the immediate problem."
My bad. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a contamination alarm goes off. A seal has broken in the autopsy room.
Uh-oh.
Charles is inside, but he's still alive. Ruth then has an epileptic seizure. There are tense moments of deduction and guessing before Hall thinks he figures out why the baby and an old man are still alive. But then they notice a lab animal in with Charles is still alive too. The disease has mutated into a non-infectious form, but it still disintegrates plastics.
Some plastics, yeah.
The gaskets that seal the rooms are decomposing. The base locks down, and the bomb is armed with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, because the computer has just sensed, there's a leak, and it doesn't know that it's a non-lethal leak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the bomb goes off, Andromeda will mutate into a million different ways instead of staying harmless. Mark has to climb into the core of the base to disarm the bomb manually, but there are defenses that he must avoid. Gas and lasers. He gets shot in the hand and face with a laser, but keeps on going even in shock. With only 9 seconds left, he manages to insert the key and turn the bomb off. Stone then reports to the government that the crisis here has been averted, but it may easily happen again. The end.
And the reason the baby and the baby and the old man were alive, they finally figure out that that particular form of the disease would only thrive in a certain pH of blood, and the kid was a chronic crier, and so was constantly blowing off CO2. Anyway, they were at the opposite ends. The old guy's blood was acidic, and the baby's blood was alkaline. Too much for the disease to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
right, well, the base is really cool and impressive, although it's not very efficient to move around in. Did they really kill the monkey in this? That looked pretty
That
real.
sure looked realistic.
Yeah, it was moving around and it just sort of keeled over and died. It sure looked real.
Yeah.
Well, some of the technology is made up sci-fi, and some is as mundane today as a touchscreen using a pen. Oh, they made a big deal out of that pen screen.
Yes, they did.
I would be tempted to call this more science fiction than horror, but there are all those dead bodies in the beginning that might argue with us.
Mm-hmm.
And the animal testing is pretty realistic.
And the pilot getting turned to a skeleton. There's some horror elements for sure.
Well, it's focused more on the technology and the procedure for containment, and a little bit light on characterization. It's very realistic and well considered, I guess. Kind of tense and entertaining. There's no action until the very end with the lasers and stuff, like 3 minutes of running through hallways. But it never gets boring. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought it still holds up okay.
Yeah. All right. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention early on that I probably should have is we have another giveaway this week.
What do we have to give away?
There's something wrong with the children.
Oh, we saw that.
We did. We'll be reviewing it next week.
And there is something wrong with those children.
There's something wrong with lots of children, but specifically this group.
So you can watch it for yourself and see what's wrong with them.
Drop us an email at horrorguys.com and say, I want something wrong with my children.
Or something along those lines.
And if you're one of the first 5 people, you will get a free promo code to watch that one. I think that one's through Redbox, so those are completely free.
And very easy to watch on any device.
Yeah, you watch it on your phone if you want.
Yeah.
We watched it on our nice new Vizio TV. We finally broke down and bought us a new HD TV, or a new 4K TV. Got tired of all these movies that were just black. Something's happening in the dark. What's happening? Oh, it's black.
Time to upgrade. Yeah,
Yeah,
our TV was old, and it's amazing how affordable they are now, and the sound bar and everything, the whole setup.
Yeah.
If you're out there with an old TV suffering.
Our old TV was only like 10 years old. So
But
it's not ancient, but I guess that
that's-
is old for TVs.
That's an antique for a TV. Yeah, but
Pre-4K.
yeah, they got good stuff out there that's very affordable now, and yeah, we did it.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want, there's something wrong with the children, email us at email@horrorguys.com, and we'll get that out to you. Until next week, I'm Brian,
And I'm Kevin.
and we'll see you next week.
Stay healthy.